never meant to hold everything at once. Let that truth land slowly, not as a justification, not as an excuse, but as a biological fact. The human mind evolved to focus on what is immediate, relevant, and necessary for survival in the present moment. It was never designed to track endless inputs, constant updates, unresolved tasks, competing priorities, and infinite information streams simultaneously. Mental overload is not a personal failure. It is a capacity issue. When the mind is asked to hold too much for too long without clear boundaries or rest, it does what overloaded systems do. It fragments, it rushes, it feels foggy and tense at the same time. Today is about releasing that overload, not by organizing more, but by understanding what truly belongs in the mind and what does not. Information fatigue arises when attention is treated as unlimited. It is not. Attention is a finite resource. Each decision, each notification, each unfinished thought draws from the same pool. Levitin's work shows that the brain performs best when information is externalized, structured, and limited. The mind is not meant to be a storage unit. It is meant to be a processor. When you ask it to store everything, it cannot process clearly. Clarity returns when the load is reduced, not when the mind tries harder. As you listen now, notice how many open loops you may be carrying. Things to remember, things to decide, things to revisit. You do not need to list them. Simply notice the sense of fullness, the background pressure. That pressure is the signal. It is the mind saying, there's too much in here. Releasing overload begins with permission to stop holding everything internally. You do not need to solve it all now. You do not need to prioritize it all now. You only need to recognize that the mind has exceeded its optimal capacity. That recognition itself creates relief. When you stop blaming yourself, energy returns. The mind becomes quieter not because information disappears, but because resistance ends. Much of overwhelm comes from the belief that you should be able to manage all of this mentally. That belief is outdated. The modern environment delivers more data in a day than previous generations encountered in months or years. The brain has not changed at the same pace. Expecting it to cope without support creates chronic strain. You are not behind. You are overloaded. There is a difference. When the mind is overloaded, it loses its ability to distinguish importance. Everything feels urgent. Everything feels equally demanding. This is not because everything matters. It is because the sorting system is saturated. Today is about letting go of the need to sort everything internally. You can allow the mind to rest from categorizing, evaluating, tracking. Even now, you can notice how effort drops when you stop trying to manage thoughts. Thoughts can be present without being held. Information can exist without being processed immediately. The nervous system responds to this permission with a subtle exhale. You may feel it in the body, a slight softening, a sense of space. That space is not emptiness. It is capacity returning. Mental overload often creates the illusion that stopping will cause collapse, that if you pause, something will be missed, forgotten, lost. In reality, overload reduces effectiveness far more than rest ever could. When the mind is given space, it reorganizes naturally. Priorities become clearer. Memory improves. Decision-making sharpens. This is not achieved through effort. It is achieved through reduction. Levitin emphasizes that reducing cognitive load frees the prefrontal cortex to do what it does best. You do not need to remember everything. You need to trust that what matters will surface when the mind is not flooded. Right now, you can practice releasing by allowing attention to rest on something simple and concrete. The sensation of contact with the ground, the feeling of the body being supported. These sensations require no effort to maintain. They are stable. When attention rests here, informational noise loses dominance. Again, this is not suppression. The information does not disappear. It simply moves out of the foreground. Overload lives in the foreground. Relief lives in the background. May notice the mind attempting to reassert control, to pull you back into mental tracking. That impulse is habit. You can acknowledge it without following it. Releasing overload does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means relocating it. Tasks belong in systems, not in constant mental rehearsal. Decisions belong in time blocks, not in perpetual background processing. The mind is not the place for storage. It is the place for presence. When presence is restored, overwhelm decreases. You may also notice that information fatigue dulls emotion. Too much input creates numbness or irritability. This is the brain protecting itself. When input reduces, sensitivity returns. You may feel more, not less. This is healthy. Feeling is not overload. Unprocessed information is. Today is not about consuming more insight. It is about letting insight land without adding it to a pile. You do not need to remember everything said here. What stays will stay. What leaves was never meant to be held. The mind does not need to grasp. It needs to trust. Trust that clarity comes from simplicity. Trust that focus emerges when noise recedes. Trust that you can release without losing control. Control was never meant to be total. It was meant to be selective. As this understanding settles, you may experience moments of quiet that feel unfamiliar. Quiet can feel like absence at first, like something missing. That feeling is the absence of overload. The mind may interpret it as boredom or unease. That is temporary. With time, quiet reveals itself as spaciousness. Spaciousness allows thought to arise cleanly, one at a time. That is the organized mind, not a mind filled with systems, but a mind free from unnecessary burden. You can carry this principle into your day gently. When you notice overwhelm, you can remind yourself that you were never meant to hold everything at once. That reminder is not resignation. It is wisdom. Each time you release the need to manage everything mentally, you reclaim energy. Energy that can be used for creativity, connection, rest. Overload steals those things. Release restores them. This process does not require dramatic changes. It begins with moments like this, where you allow the mind to put things down, even for a few minutes, even without knowing what you are putting down. The nervous system understands. It responds. And as it does, you may find that clarity returns not through effort, but through relief. You are allowed to let go. You are allowed to simplify. You are allowed to rest from information. works best when it is not overworked. And right now, without doing anything more, you are already releasing